How am I gonna go through with this? Hello, everybody, and welcome to my channel. Yeah. Hey, Dan. I hate you for this intro. I super hate you. Well, I'm so excited to be back on this series. This one, I'm gonna be going through my story, Fragile Face, which is one of my oldest and most developed stories. The story takes place in the 1700s. And it starts with this character Hugo, who's a witch. Now, magic is something that's hereditary, and once you're born with it, you can't get rid of it. But humans are the one who control the world, who have like all the leadership positions, and pretty much run everything. And since they're scared of what magical beings can do, and the power they hold, the potential they have to destroy the world, magic is outlawed. Even though it's mostly not used for evil. So anyone with magic has to live in silence and be very cautious all the time. Hugo lives in a town with other witches in hiding, but the majority of the people there are humans, so he can only meet up with the witches in secret, and they can only do magic in secret. One day, he's getting groceries, and he hears a bunch of people yelling and running in the same direction. Hugo figures out that two of his best friends, a husband and wife, were outed as witches, and the townspeople are currently setting their house on fire. The other witches in hiding are too afraid of being outed themselves to try and help and save them, so they're just sitting back and watching some of their best friends be murdered. But Hugo sneaks into the burning house through the window. And when he gets there, he finds the husband and wife are charred and dead. But they have a newborn in her crib, untouched by the flames. So Hugo grabs her and sneaks out of the house, running home. When he gets there, turns out the baby actually suffocated to death through the smoke from the house. So Hugo thought that he was saving someone, but really he was just carrying around a dead child. So obviously Hugo is devastated, and in a fit of panic, he uses his powers to bring her back to life. It works, and he names the baby Willow, and raises her like his own daughter. Now, there aren't that many rules about magic, since it's something that you do in secret, but bringing someone back from the dead is super taboo. Hugo didn't know why it was taboo though, until he started noticing that as she got older, Willow would occasionally lose control of herself. It started out with spasms and screaming, like something was hurting her from the inside. He tried as hard as he could to heal her each time, but nothing he would do would work. One day, when she was about 4, she was having another spasm until suddenly she stopped screaming. She stood up like everything was normal and went to go eat dinner like nothing even happened. Hugo thought that maybe she was finally healed, but he noticed she started acting different than usual. It was like the only two emotions she could express was absolute glee and anger. She would flip back to her normal self sometimes, but most of the time she was in this state. Then, a few weeks after the spasm stopped, she tried to kill him. Luckily, he cast a spell to knock her out, but he didn't know what to do about her now. He kept her tied up in case she would wake, and he looked up as much as he could about bringing someone back to life. Turns out, when you die, your soul loses a protectant that keeps you from harm. When he forced her soul back into her body, the protectant was gone, and her soul slowly became tainted. She was turning into a demon, but forced into a human body. Hugo knew he had to kill her, but this is pretty much his child. He couldn't. So he compromised, and locked her in the cellar with chains around her wrists and ankles to stop her from trying to escape or scratch herself or do something. But he kept the room nice and gave her extravagant foods and gifts, as if he's trying to make up for it. He can't let her out because then she'd surely kill him and go out to kill other people. But he didn't want to kill her. There's times when Willow snaps out of it and is her normal self, and those aren't that often, but when they happen, they remind Hugo that she's still in there, and if he kills her, he's killing his child too. It's really hard to be a good father in the situations he's put in. Also, since Willow was born from 2 witches, she's also a witch, but since she doesn't have any education in magic, her abilities are shaky and instinct at best. One time, Hugo buys her a beautiful porcelain doll to put on her shelf, which she adores. But when she gets overcome by the demon part of herself, she flings it off the shelf with a gust of wind, cracking it. And when she snaps out of it, she cries her eyes out over breaking her favorite doll, and Hugo fixes it. This goes on a few times until Hugo decides to just take the doll out of the room. He moves the doll to his study, and this gives him an idea. So, there's no known cure for a tainted soul, because most people, if someone's with a tainted soul, they kill them. But if he has something to test on, he could figure one out. So he builds the soul from scratch and puts it in the doll, bringing it to life. And he names the doll Miriam. I'm gonna break out of the story for a hot sec to mention how this first design is probably the worst character design I've ever done. The head and face is boring, and the outfit is just too much. I mean, she's a porcelain doll. I could have done so much more to show that she's not human or give her doll-like features. And the clothes. It's a jacket with a corset and then ruffles and leg armor. I don't know, it's a mess. But her final version is something I'm very satisfied with, so it's not like this even matters. Alright, back to the story. So, at first, he uses this doll just for testing, but she has a soul, which means she has a personality and emotions, and he gets attached to her. He's longing for the feeling of being an actual dad to a child again, because his daughter is currently a demon. So he can't really, be a good dad to her. So he starts treating Miriam like his daughter, except now this time he's very overprotective. Which is understandable. She's made of porcelain, which means she can shatter really easily. And she shatters a lot, so he has to heal her a lot. But it's still nerve-wracking, though. Also, she can't leave the house because, I know it doesn't really show in this design, but she doesn't look human. And they'd both automatically be outed as magic if she's spotted. Add that with the fact that his other daughter is in the cellar, slowly turning into a demon, then you see why he's really protective over her. Also, Miriam doesn't know about Willow at first, but when she finds the cellar, they talk to each other through the door. Miriam doesn't know Willow's situation and thinks she's just this girl who's sick and very contagious, which is why she's down there, and that sometimes she gets into these very intense moods. Well, one day, Hugo's out of the house, and Miriam goes to talk to Willow. She doesn't respond, and after a while Miriam gets anxious and opens the door to check on her for the first time. Willow's body is floating in the air, surrounded by this black smoke. Smoke immediately flies into Miriam and she's knocked out. When she wakes up, she can see Willow, but it's more like a screen or projection. Willow tells her that her body finally rejected her soul and they need to find someone to put her back in. Miriam tells her that they could just go to Hugo, their witch father, who has magic, but Willow doesn't trust him. She's also dead set on this witch that lives in the forest that she heard about through storybooks. So Willow forces Miriam, a fragile porcelain doll, to leave the house for the very first time and travel through these dangerous monster-infected woods to find the wizard. Willow's soul is sort of camping out in Miriam, and usually she just projects her voice or an image of herself, but sometimes she could possess Miriam. When she does that, though, it slowly starts tainting Miriam's soul. But also, when she's possessing Miriam, Miriam can use magic through Willow's witchy soul. She can use this to attack monsters or heal herself, but if she does this too much, there's a chance her soul could become tainted beyond return. So that's Fragile Face. It's pretty developed, and I actually sketched out about 3 chapters of this comic a few years ago. Since then, though, I decided that if I would make this story into something, it wouldn't be a comic. It would be an RPG game, like Ib or The Witch's House or Mad Father. Those games are near and dear to my heart, and I feel like the story fits better through gameplay than just a comic. Also, the story has different endings due to decisions made throughout it, and that's straight up a mechanic in video games already, and would be difficult, if not impossible, to do that through a comic. I don't know. I really like RPG games and the style of them, and I feel like this story would fit really well with one of those. Well, I hope you enjoyed. For my next one of these, which story would you like to hear about more? A vampire on a road trip or people with brands on their foreheads? Comment what do you think I should do? I'm tired. Love you guys.